Welcome back to the Institute of Managers and Leaders Australia and New Zealand. I'm sorry about that. We did have the mute on, as is a regular occurrence in virtual setups. But thank you so much for joining us for our second session today, where we've got the wonderful Jacqui. And Jacqui Perkins is ready to go with Let's Not Do Business as Usual. I can't wait for this presentation. Coming off Shannon's earlier presentation about the power of storytelling was a wonderful way to set up today's development day, and I'm really looking forward to Jacqui. My name is Sam Bell. I'm the interim CEO of the Institute, but today I'm Jacqui Perkins' assistant, and I will be helping her throughout the presentation because she's got a lot of audience interaction. So we're going to be asking you a number of questions throughout, and to use your the question box to answer and reply, and give Jacqui some feedback as she works through today's session. Just a little bit about today. What we're looking at is about 40 minutes of Jacqui's presentation, and then we'll have time afterwards for some Q&A. So please feel free to enter questions throughout Jacqui's presentation, and we will get to those throughout the session. Today's also fully recorded. So we're going to record the whole session. It will be made available to everyone who's registered. You'll receive that this afternoon, along with all the resources Jacqui talks about throughout the presentation. And I know they're going to be very, very helpful. And also there'll be a link to our virtual workshop page. We've got a number of virtual workshops coming up. And these sessions today, this development day, has been built upon a lot of the content from those virtual workshops. So please look out for that. That'll be sent all in one pack this afternoon in an email that will help you guide you from today's learning. The power of positive workplace cultures, as I said at the outset this morning in the first session, is a very, very important topic for organisations and for managers and leaders. There's a number of locations and a number of businesses that are currently locked out of their offices and staff that can't get in. So it's about building workplace culture in an environment that's difficult. And I think Jacqui refers to Peter Drucker's culture eats strategy for breakfast quote a number of times in this presentation. But never has that been more true. And as I said at the outset, I don't think Mr. Drucker thought about it from the context if we were in lockdowns and staff weren't able to get into offices. So it's never been more pertinent, culture in an organisation, than today, and going through the change we're all experiencing with the global pandemic and economic challenges that are around. So look, let's get straight into Jacqui's presentation. Let's not do business as usual. The session is looking to embody a success mindset and create a workplace where employees are connected to your why. It's so important. So Jacqui's going to talk to us about how nailing the why allows the what and the how to fall into place, how behaviours impact culture, how creating a workplace where team members love their jobs, and also practical examples and techniques to put this knowledge into practice. And that final point really demonstrates everything about the Institute of Managers and Leaders. We're about practical learning. And so giving you the theory today, but also turning that into how you can implement that into your workplace tomorrow. And that's what we're all about. So I'm sure Jacqui's ready to go, and I will hand over to Jacqui, and I will come back in as her assistant throughout various sessions, throughout various parts of the presentation, and help get through that audience participation. But sit back and enjoy Jacqui Perkins. Let's not do business as usual.
Thank you, Sam. I need a lot of help in more ways than one. I need a lot of help. So just before I kick off into this topic, I actually want to say, with absolute genuine intention, that I come from a place of deepest respect for the people that are in the audience, particularly those that are sitting in Victoria or New South Wales. Pardon me, Victoria, I mean, I don't know, your lockdown has gone on and off for sort of over 220, 230 days. New South Wales, it's just been never ever ending. And so please understand that what I'm about to share with you, even though I'm sitting in Queensland, I don't want you to think that it's coming from a glib place where I have no understanding of some of the real challenges that you guys are facing, both professionally, personally, mentally. It's a very, very hard place to be, and it completely resonates with me, even though I'm in Queensland, because I actually have two elderly parents in a nursing home in Melbourne that are in their 6th lockdown, that are in a huge deal of distress, and I cannot get to see them. And I'm trying to do 3-way conversations with the nursing staff and themselves. And I also had to watch my daughter get married on Zoom in London 2 weeks ago. So yes, I've had to embrace the whole virtual experience from business to professional, and it's been heartbreaking in many ways. So I have huge empathy for some of the challenges that you're all facing. And I'm hoping that today can just give us a little ray of sunshine and give us some just practical tools and tips that we can put into place and just help get us a little bit of momentum again, because if you're anything like me, I also have felt stuck, and I think sometimes it's harder to tread water than it is to swim a marathon. And I think a lot of us right now are just trying to tread water. So I'm hoping today we can start swimming again and just look at what we can do right now that we can put in place and we have some control over. So I'm actually going to just do a little touch in to see where you're sitting. Some of you might be feeling quite overwhelmed as to where to even start. And if that's you, in the question box, if you can just put a 1. Some of you might be going, oh, for goodness sake, Jacqui, I'm so exhausted and drained myself. What more do you want from me now? You want me to create, a better workplace culture. Where am I supposed to pull this energy from? Are you smoking your socks? This is just crazy. I'm trying to just keep my team together. Or it might be, that we're living in a time of uncertainty and crisis, and I'm just trying to keep the business afloat. Expecting me now to have a great positive workplace culture on top of it is just a bridge too far. Or you might be some of the people that are saying, I'm really proud of the workplace culture we have created and sustained. And despite this climate and of doom and gloom, we're actually in a really, really good spot. So I'm going to, I can see the answers flying in thick and fast. Well done. That's absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to hand over to Sam. Because he's going to give me a little trend of what's happening here, because my ability to read stats and data is not in my skill set.
Well, Jacqui, there's literally hundreds of replies coming in here. I'm not sure how we're going to keep up with it. The predominant score that I'm seeing here is 4.
Oh.
Is 4, which is a wonderful sign, and a lot of 2s as well. But predominantly 4s, and some 2s, some all of the above.
I love it. So quite a few 2s there, feeling exhausted and drained myself. Now I need to find the energy to build my workplace culture, and then a number of 4s that you're really proud of the workplace culture you've managed to create. So there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. It is what it is. And what I'm often heard saying around the office is that probably the 2 most important things in our personal and professional development is, number 1, self-awareness, the ability to tap into your emotional state, acknowledge it, understand it, ask yourself, is it healthy, helpful, and productive? And then number 2 is self-regulation. Well, what am I going to do with this? And I often talk about we can't change behavior until we change the way we think. And that is something that we're actually going to talk about with our teams, is we can't expect people to change behavior to create a different culture if we're not tapping into actually what's driving their thinking processes and their belief systems, so that they want to change rather than they have to change. Otherwise, they're just playing lip service to it. None of us want that. So thank you. I just need some technical direction there. I don't know which screen to click on. Peter Drucker is famous for saying culture eats strategy for breakfast. And Sam and Shannon did allude to that in the first webinar this morning. So we want to just ask ourselves what actually is culture. But just before we do that, I really, really just want to stress that Drucker doesn't mean that strategy isn't unimportant. Obviously, we need to have strategy, but it's our people that drive the strategy. So if we don't have people that are engaged, if we don't have people that feel they're part of a wonderful culture, they don't feel inspired and they don't feel that they love coming to work and they love what they do, then they're not going to be productive. I mean, we don't need, a massive qualification to be able to ascertain that. People that are committed and engaged and inspired and love what they do and love their customers and love the company that they work for are going to be more productive. So we first got to put that building block in place of culture first, and then that wonderful strategy that we've written is going to be a lot more easier to actually execute. So I'm going to actually get you to have a think about this. The challenge is to describe culture. Now, I know the people listening to Shannon's webinar spend quite a bit of time on this. So I'm just going to challenge you in the chat boxes just to put up, a couple of words as to what you think culture is. And then we're going to talk about, well, how do we actually change that? So what is culture in your own words? And you can copy and paste some of the stuff you learned from Shannon, or you can just throw in your own ideas there into the chat box, the question box, sorry. And Sam will let us know what your thoughts are, and then we will talk about how do we actually go about changing it. So any thoughts from you guys? I'm going to hand over to Sam to give us a summary there.
I think a lot of them are channeling Shannon's presentation, which is the way we do things around here. Culture is the subconscious strategic pendulum in which we swing between coping and flourishing, the way employees behave, the set of behaviours our teams display, engagement. Culture is people, the way we do things around here, behaviour, leading by example. Culture is about behaviours, mutual respect. Culture is how we operate, how we support each other, how we react to things, how people feel when they're at work, how people act instinctively, feelings and emotions employees demonstrate, how you do and think about things. Culture is the sum total of individual outlooks on the workplace. Culture is the interaction between people and how they work for betterment or not. Behaviour when leaders aren't around.
Yes.
Culture is the common conversation. Culture is what is expected and accepted. A combination of values, behaviour, purpose and strategy.
Lovely.
Pride in your work and feeling empowered. Culture is the personality of the organisation.
Lovely.
Culture, it's moving very quickly. The ideas, customs and social behaviour.
Yes, love it.
How do I feel at my workplace? Am I respected? Culture is the emotional connection between employee and the workplace and the work they do.
Lovely.
Culture is how we work together.
Yes.
Culture often is an undocumented way of working. Culture is shared employee values and beliefs.
Beautiful, love that.
Culture is the ideas and behaviour of a society of people.
Lovely.
One
more.
Culture is what you are prepared to tolerate to achieve the results you require, aggregated up throughout the organisation.
Love it. Thank you so much, Sam. And I love there were a couple of comments around that it's also linked to beliefs and attitudes. I'm really, really glad that you've made that connection as well, because that's something that we really want to dive into and that we really want to talk about. So I Googled culture and I took a whole bunch of phrases and words and I smudged them together. So that's why I can't actually attribute this quote to anyone, because it doesn't belong to anyone in specific. I've stolen it from 4 or 5 people and shoved it into one little doodah, and that's what I've come up with. And what you guys have come up with is way better than what I've got on the screen. And now that I've seen your stuff, I'll go back and rewrite my definition, because it's a lot sexier than the one that I came up with. But anyway, we can use this as a bit of a guiding post around what we believe culture is. So culture could be described as the character and personality of your organization. It's what makes your business unique. It's so value proposition jumps into my head when I read that. It's a combination of its values, and we spoke about values being guidelines to behaviors, traditions, beliefs. We want to talk about how we won't change unless we change the way we think, interactions, the way we treat our internal customers as well as our external customers, our behaviors are what we say and do, rituals, those daily practices, and symbols. So, a lot of our branding, our logos, our icons, they're a reflection of the culture that we're working in. So how do we actually, how do we change culture? Now, very often, consulting companies or people like myself are asked to come in and do a whole change management piece. And it's almost like, how do you change the world in 45 minutes? Well, I actually don't know, but some people think you can. So I think it's important to just maybe have a little conversation around the difference between change and transformation. So my understanding is that when we look at changing something, we're actually saying to people, these are the new processes we want you to use, or these are the behaviors that we want to see demonstrated in an organization. But if you don't have a change in belief system, if people don't understand the rationale behind that change, if they don't understand the why behind it, and if they don't agree with it or connect with it or buy into it, we're simply going to have changed behavior, which means the non-verbals, which is 93% of your message, is going to tell the real story. So people will do what they have to do, but the non-verbals are going to be singing a very different song. And your customers are going to very quickly pick up that person, yes, they answered the phone in 3 rings. Yes, they put a smile on their face. Yes, they said, how do you do? And thank you so much. But all the non-verbals implied, actually, I'm not buying into this and I'm not interested, and we're not working with a great culture at all. So we really want to look at transformation. And transformation is where we tap into people's belief systems and go, well, what do you want to do to make this place a great place to work? So everybody wants to work in an organization that they look forward to going to work, that they go home at the end of the day and say, I had a great day because I love the people that I work. I love the culture that I work in. And our customers love doing business with people that love their jobs. So if people don't love their jobs, our customers don't like doing business with them. So we want to go, how do I create the environment I want to work in? How do we create the environment our customers want to do business in? Really tap into people's own ideas around this, and then say, what are some of the shared beliefs we want to put into place? And then we can start working on the how. So I'm going to share with you 5 simple strategies. Now, I stole this little phrase, easy to do and easy not to do, from a gentleman by the name of Jeff Olson. Jeff Olson wrote a really good book, The Slight Edge. It's all about managing your priorities, but he kept on saying these are easy to do, they're easy not to do. It's like, you know, it's easy to get out of bed and go for a 5K walk every day. It's also easy to push the snooze button. So easy to do, easy not to do. So these are the 5 strategies that we're going to look at in this webinar today. I'm not going to read them out because you can all read them yourself, but what I do want you to do is at the end of this session, I'm going to ask you to select your top 3. So what are your top 3? What are you going to do with those 3? So we want some specific actions. And in the resources you receive from us, I've actually put some very specific workplace action items to take away from this webinar so that you can walk away with some doable, relevant practices that can help you start changing how we actually create more positive workplace cultures within the organization. So my favorite of all time, Simon Sinek. I'm sure most of you are all across it, but if you have not come across Simon Sinek, that is a non-negotiable. First thing you do when you get off this webinar is you go Google him, you go watch his TED Talks, you go buy his books, because he just really summarizes everything we're about to talk about. So one of the things he's most famous for saying is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So in a moment, we're going to talk about what is a company's why, what is their mission, what is their heart, what is their purpose. We hear so much talk about profit-driven versus purpose-driven organizations, and companies that are purpose-driven are more successful than companies that are simply profit-driven. And we want to talk about how we align that to people's individual whys. So we'll get into that in a moment. The other thing that I alluded to is customers will never love a company until the employees love it first. So I got into the lift in the middle of Brisbane the other day, and there were 6 people from a company. It happened to be a competitor company for a client that I was working for. They all had their name badges on, they all had the name of the company on, and they proceeded to totally trash the company that they work for. And I'm sitting there going, oh, holy moly, this number one went through my head, this is pure gold. I've got such information that's going to help my client. But the second thing I thought of is, I would never do business with these people because the people that work there clearly do not enjoy working there, which means I'm going to get lackluster, substandard service. They're just going to work to rule. It's not going to come from the heart. So let's look at the first one. So I'm going to have to put my glasses on here because I'm getting a bit blind, and this will help me see it a little bit clearer. Your first workplace activity that I'm really going to encourage you to do is to think about what is your organization's why. Now, I'm just going to read the little bolded statement first. all organizations start with why, but only the great ones keep their why clear year after year. So it's all very well creating a great vision and a great mission statement, but do we revisit it? Do we have regular meetings around it? Do we talk about it? Do we integrate it into the organization? So I want you to think about, what is your company's purpose? Why do they do what they do? And then I want you to think about how you align that to the individuals and the teams within the organization. So I've just put up a couple of examples there. So if you just look at the second one, creating better managers and leaders for a better society by the Institute of Managers and Leaders. Just recently, we finished running a leadership program, and at one of our clients, and Sam, our CEO, came and we did presentations from all the people in the cohort who spoke about what they'd learned, what they'd applied, what had been challenging, what had been successful. And Sam said, this is so rewarding. This reminds us why we do what we do, because the whole purpose we're in this business is to help managers be better at what they do, help leaders be better at what they do. Why? Because we want a better society. So really talking about, well, why did we join this particular industry? Why do we do this role? What is our business's why? What does it mean to us? Which leads us, and when we ask people within the organization, have they thought about that? Have they really thought about the mission of the organization? What does it actually mean to them individually? How does it inform their day-to-day practice? How does it inform their decisions? How does it inform, some of the projects that they work on, if they really understand that why? So, for instance, I could go up to two bricklayers building a wall and say to both of them, what are you building? And the one might say to me, oh, I'm building a wall. And another one might say, oh, we're building a cathedral to worship our Lord. And I have to ask myself, well, which one is going to go above and beyond? Which one's going to give their heart and soul? Well, the one that sees the purpose, the bigger picture, the cathedral, is going to put so much more into building that wall than the person who can only see the wall. But it's our job as leaders to go, this is why we're doing what we're doing. This is what we're working towards. This is what we're trying to achieve and why. So that's our first strategy, to have a think about that. It's then of no purpose unless we're actually thinking, how do I align this to the actual individual teams? So I love this quote from Simon Sinek. He says, working hard for something we don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. So I really want us to think about that. And I think about, when I'm running my own business and I'm working late at night and my husband is saying, oh, for goodness sake, just turn that laptop off. You've got to get to bed. And I have to ask myself, well, why am I keeping going? Because I love what I do. I get energized by it. I get excited by it. So I'm not sitting there feeling I've got so much work to do. I get so embroiled in it, I actually can't stop until I've reached a place where I feel I've actually achieved something of satisfaction. So this is something that we as managers can do. Whether you're running a virtual or a face-to-face meeting with your team, send these out as agenda item questions for them to think about. What do you look forward to most about coming to work? Get them to think about that. So, Shannon spoke about the stories we tell ourselves. It's very easy for us to go home at the end of the day and go, oh, I'm so sick of work. Oh, this happened, that happened. These customers, this colleague, this. But if we just stop and intentionally say, well, what makes me get out of bed in the morning? As Simon Sinek says, what makes me throw the doona off in the morning? What do I love about my job? Which leads into what parts of my role energizes me, motivates me. So yes, they're all bits and pieces of a job that we hate doing, but what are the bits you love doing? What are the bits that really give you an opportunity to learn, that really you get stuck into and love? Think about what drew you to this industry. I mean, are you selling cigarettes? Are you selling cement? What are you doing? What drew you to this industry, to this particular organization, to this particular role? What is it about it that attracted you? Was it specifically your manager, or was it the type of work that they do that really invigorates you? Think about what you're most proud of achieving at work, even if you've had a hell of a time, even if the last 6 months have been awful. What is some stuff that you've done that you've never done before? So for example, we've had some scary moments in this industry with COVID. and at the last minute having to turn an entire conference that was supposed to run in Perth to live stream. I couldn't get there, but they could all get together in the conference, and I had my big ugly mug on this huge big screen for everyone to look at and to be very careful that I didn't pick my nose or do something terrible, because it was the first time I'd done something like that. But at the end, I had this sense of huge satisfaction and reward. It was new, it was different, it was scary, but I went, wow, that was invigorating. And then thinking about what could you leverage of more? So what parts of your role could you actually be leveraging more of if you realize that you actually really love that you actually really enjoy it? So we really just want to think about, what story am I telling myself? Am I telling myself the stuff every day that I love, that I enjoy? Or am I telling myself stuff every day that this is getting to me, this is getting me down, this is frustrating, this is annoying me? Because that then becomes entrenched in our neural pathways. So we've really got to ask some intentional questions so that people in our teams can start sharing this stuff. So yesterday I actually ran a Zoom session with a client where we got every single person from the contact center to the sales team to the marketing team, and they had to share everything they were proud of, everything that they've done. And this is from a retirement aged care company where they've had massive lockdowns and all sorts of hardships going on. But when people started sharing the stuff that they've implemented and the challenges they've faced and they've overcome, by the time we finished the session, you could just see the pride in people's faces. You could see how energized they were by what they'd managed to do, even though they'd been through such a scary, scary time. Now, number 3 is what Shannon has already touched on. So this is about sharing the positive stories. As I said, it's easy to share the hard ones, the tough ones, but being really intentional about sharing the good ones. So I'm going to go back to the example I just shared with you. So LDK Healthcare is a retirement/aged care company. The LDK actually stands for love, decency, and kindness. So their values are actually displayed on their left-hand top pocket every day, all day. So wherever they go, they have to live and breathe love, decency, and kindness. But something that they've done is that every single meeting, whether it's an exec meeting or operational meeting, has to start or end with an LDK story. Now, an LDK story has to be something where they've experienced love, decency, or kindness, either from an internal customer, so one of their staff members or their managers, or from a resident that lives there. Now, going back to what Shannon said with Qantas and, the CEO going to help a distressed passenger who's lost his baggage. What that does, it connects you with the heart of the business, because the bigger the business gets, the less connection we have with those customers, the less interaction we have with our customers and why they do business with us. Many years ago, the coffee club, if they employed new people, had to do 2 weeks in a coffee club serving the customers to get back to the heart of the business. Now, this is what this in essence is doing. They are sharing stories around where they saw a nurse, taking someone in their wheelchair out to the shops to buy a packet of cigarettes because no one else was prepared to do that for them, or phoning a niece in Perth and setting up a Skype or a Zoom session for them because they didn't have the technology to do it, or just small little things where we go above and beyond, or just sitting down and having a cup of tea with someone, even though they're on a strict time schedule to hand out medications, but this person is sitting lonely and distressed and saying, well, I'll sit and have a cup of tea, and you show me the photographs of your granddaughter's wedding and let's talk about it. So what are the little things that we're doing for each other as internal customers, or we've seen other people do, and starting every meeting off with a really positive story which makes you go, wow, I work for this company, I love working for this company. So just even questions like who helped you will help these stories start to emerge. Now, I'm going to give you another real life case study. Carlos is someone that has just completed a leadership program with us through IML. You can see from his title there that he's with Endeavour. Now, this is the amazing aspect of this. Carlos is sitting in Victoria. He's got a 1-year-old son, married, all working from home, the 1-year-old climbing the walls. Can you imagine? Holy moly, working at home with the 1-year-old for the last God knows how long. And not only that, he's had to manage an entire team in Victoria and another whole team in New South Wales. Now, the rest of the teams are in Queensland. So he's got no camaraderie there because all the other operational managers are in Queensland. He's the only manager in Victoria and New South Wales. So there's no one else he can bounce ideas off in his particular company. He is actually having to pioneer everything that they're doing. But in spite of that, I want you to look at some of these amazing results that they got. So he's just mentioned there that I'm very proud that our New South Wales and Vic team braved 6 lockdowns, being our organisation's most impacted region, and yet was resilient through it all. On 6 occasions, this team of 700 employees has jobs stood down and stood back up again, worked through production floors and worked weekends with skeleton crews, operated with stringent COVID-safe protocols, supported customers, and these are people with disabilities, so they help people with disabilities, those are their customers, on site and at home, closed sites and reopened sites. When you look at some of these results, if you look at their retention rate of staff is 8% lower than the rest of the organisation. For both staff and for comparable customers, it's 3% lower than comparable customers. They had the highest level of staff participation in the staff engagement survey, and they've still achieved their financial targets. In spite of this, I said to them, I phoned them up and I said, I really want to know, what is it that you're doing that in spite of all these challenges, you're still getting these amazing results? Because I felt you're not going to listen to anything I have to say if it's based in Queensland. So I thought, well, let me get it from someone who's actually living in the thick of it, but still really getting great engagement and therefore great results. So he has done everything we've just spoken about, like communicating the why, understanding the why, really getting people to think about what's important to them. But these next couple of strategies he does particularly well. So we're going to get into strategy number 4. And this is where he's been particularly stringent. And this is about making sure he has really scheduled intentional one-on-one meetings and team meetings. So not cancelling them at the last minute and not just going in and saying, hey, how are you doing? Hey, are you okay? Oh, great job. That's awesome. But very, very specific questions that he gets them to prepare for. So specific questions such like, what was your biggest challenge you overcame this week? So they know it's not just about coming and going, rah, rah, life's great, but what was your biggest challenge? How did you overcome it? Or what was your most valuable insight or learning as a result of this? Very importantly, who helped you this week? So maybe you've had people from Queensland that have reached out and helped you, or who have you helped this week? So even though you're in lockdown, you still could be helping people. What have you done to help the organization? Or I love this question, what has been your biggest contribution to the business this week? So keeping them focused on the biggest strategy. Or what is your main focus for this week? And really having these kind of conversations helps us reinforce that positive culture. So on that note, because I'm just looking at my watch and seeing that we do actually have time to do this, I'm just going to share a little example from a book. It is in your resources that will be emailed to you. It's called 18 Minutes and Get the Right Things Done by Peter Bregman. And this was written just straight after 9/11. So maybe not as disastrous or maybe more disastrous, it all depends what perspective you have and where you live as COVID. But I'm just going to read from this chapter, When the Future is Uncertain, Avoiding Paralysis. There's something curious about a group of houses in Utah. They're falling apart, windows covered with wood, roofs patched with blue tarp blowing in the wind, walls simply missing, and yet people live in them. These houses are not being built, they are half built. This has nothing to do with the real estate crash. It's not a consequence of poverty, nor is it a design statement. The house's inhabitants simply aren't motivated to finish them. You see, they're fundamentalist Mormons who have been excommunicated by the mainstream Mormon church for their practice of polygamy. And their last known leader, Warren Jeffs, had a penchant for predicting the end of the world on a rolling 6-month basis. If you think the world is about to end, what's the point of fixing your house? When I described these houses to Anne, a senior leader of a large retail bank, her face contorted with recognition. "Oh, that's exactly what I'm doing," she said. "Living in an unfinished house?" I asked. "Yes," she said. She told me she hadn't done her usually quarterly catch-ups with her team. "Why not?" I asked. "Well, what's there to say? Nothing's clear. I have no idea what to tell them. Will they have jobs in 2 months? Will their priorities change? Will we even exist? There's just too much uncertainty." She knew it was a mistake not to do these meetings, and yet she admitted to me she just hadn't done them or any of her normal management duties. She regularly cancelled meetings with her direct reports and even skipped their performance reviews and career development conversations. Why have a career development conversation with someone when there's a good chance they may not have a career with you at all? You're super busy, you're understaffed, you're stressed, you're feeling vulnerable yourself. And on top of that, the people you report to aren't pushing for conversations either. Everyone's just lying low. So here's the problem. When our future is uncertain, we have a hard time functioning in the present. So what should we do? David McClelland, the Harvard psychology professor introduced earlier in this book, who wrote the book Human Motivation, says we're all driven by 3 things. We're driven by the need to achieve, the need to affiliate or connect with other people, and the need to influence. So if you're actually interested in your intrinsic motivators, which we're going to talk about in a moment, there's actually a great little resource if you just Google Dr. David Rock SCARF model. So he's a neuroscientist, and you just put in Dr. David Rock SCARF model, and there's actually a little self-assessment that you can do. I will ask programs to send that out with your resources, and that will give you some insight into what some of these intrinsic drivers are for you. But just tapping back into those main 3, the need to achieve, the need to affiliate or connect, or the need to influence, these are just some very simple 3 things you can do. Are you working on something meaningful and challenging? So what do you have a 50% chance of succeeding? Do that now. Just do that now. Are you relating to other people? Are you relating to other people at work or socially? So are we having these team meetings? Are we getting together in teams and having intentional, meaningful conversations? One of my clients said they've actually just introduced the cooler water conversation on Teams, because she said they realized they just went straight into business and they didn't have that chit chat. So the first 5 minutes is, we're standing around the cooler chit chat for 5 minutes, then we'll get into business as usual. And the third one is you feel recognized for the work you're doing. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail now. So are we connecting? Are we recognizing people for what they're doing? And are we actually doing something that we feel proud of? So really bringing that up in our one-on-one meetings, in our team meetings. So, I've done it again. Number 5, I clicked on the wrong thingy-majiggy again. So strategy number 5. We want to recognize and reinforce the behavior you want to see more of. So the behavior that creates great culture, the behavior that creates the culture that we want to work in, the behavior that creates the culture that our customers want to do business with. If we don't recognize that, if we don't reinforce it, then potentially people are going to say, well, no one noticed, why do I bother? Or they might not even be aware that this is something that they need to keep repeating. So I'm going to ask us to go, let's catch people doing something right, which is what Kerry Cassidy is going to be talking about in the next session. And then let's also just think about what motivates people individually. So you'll see the intrinsic motivators. I'm just going to throw this out at you. Some people are going to be motivated by the fact that you went and said that was a great job. Because of you, we were able to actually achieve this deadline, or we were able to improve staff morale. And their intrinsic motivators, that they've been recognized, their profile has been lifted, that people actually know and are aware of the good work that they're doing. Or maybe the intrinsic motivator is that they just want a bit more structure and certainty. So having more one-on-ones and more catch-ups and letting them know what's going on becomes a huge motivator for them. Or maybe it's the opportunity to connect is a very important motivator for them. So just really putting a little bit of time and effort and genuine acknowledgement is going to tap into those intrinsic motivators to want to do more of what they're doing. But very, very importantly, we don't want to just say, oh, you know, you really ran that meeting well, you handled that customer well. We want to link it back. Because of you, the team morale is so much better. Because of you, the impact on the customer experience has been so much better. Because of you, the profile of our team is actually just so much better. So now I'm going to throw it over to you, and this is where Sam is going to give us a read of what comes out. I want you to look at all 5 of those strategies that I threw out there, and I want you just to plonk into the question box, what are your top 3 and why? So what are your top 3? And if top 3 is too much to do right now, just even your top 1. So what are your top 1 to 3 actions that you really found valuable from today that you want to implement, and why you feel this is important? So I'm going to throw that over to you to start plonking into the chat, into the question box, and Sam can give us some feedback around some of the information that you share with us. So some of our top takeaways, top strategies we want to implement, and why. And okay, over to you, Sam.
Thank you, Jacqui. Very powerful. I think what we're going to do is when this all opens up, Jacqui, we're going to fly you around the country to deliver this virtual workshop. Because being here in person, I'm blown away. Okay, so the feedback: 3, 4, and 5 from Jenny. Number 2 from Lawrence. So we might have to. Can we get anyway?
Yeah, let's bring these back up again. Sorry.
From Janice, because everyone needs to feel appreciated and seen. 1 and 2 from Justin, having intention and meaning behind your work makes things so much more meaningful. Number 1, make my communication more intentional. Top 1 is make your communications more intentional. Okay, so a lot of communication. Understanding the why from Belinda. 2, 4, and 5 from Monica. Number 2, align with the why. There are a number of activities that are inconsistent with the purpose that have actively eroded the culture. Number 4, schedule meetings. Biggest challenge to overcome this week. Number 3, sharing more positive stories from Dave. Number 4 and 5, questions for one-on-one catch-ups. Love the questioning. From Sharon. All are great. Having intentional focus topics at team meetings to make them more beneficial for participants, from Richard. Karen is 2 and 5, asking the staff how they feel and what motivates them.
Good.
4 and 5 from Rochelle, improve communication and be more intentional, reinforce the positive behaviours. Peter, number 5, cultural change requires a movement, not a mandate.
Nice.
Philip, number 5, I need to recognise and highlight the behaviours that I want to see more of.
Nice.
Simon, I think all of them. My team are my biggest asset and most important. Oh no, sorry, and he's said number 4. Tanya, having more intentional questions in one-on-ones to change to more positive outlook. Managing the stories you tell yourself.
Yes.
Keep them positive so you're able to set a positive tone to your team and stakeholders. Understanding and aligning the why. Want people to be more passionate rather than stressed.
Yes.
So that relates to
Sonic,
link the daily grind to a passionate why.
Yeah.
Number 5, starts with the right mindset and attitude. Important to follow up and follow through. And they're all still coming through, but we might finish on sharing positive stories in a post restructure, moving sites, and working from home. So feeling valued and important.
Lovely.
And
thank you, Sam. I think just before I hand back to Sam for questions, I'm actually I'm going to finish off with the story. So I'm going to finish off with the story of how we can actually take an event. So I always talk about that we look at events from our perspective, and someone else can look at that exact same event from a different perspective and see two different stories. But then really asking yourself whether the story is healthy, helpful, or productive. So I'm just going to quickly go back to the story of my daughter getting married on Zoom in London. We haven't seen her for 2 years. We haven't met her husband now. He sounds like a beautiful man. We've had a lot of video chats with him, but we never got to know him. And so my whole story was, my daughter's marrying a man we've never met. We're not going to be at her wedding. This is so tragic. This is so sad. These are all the stories I was telling myself. And we all then watched it live stream. And this is a different story I'm now telling you. Is as we were watching it, we had the live chat coming up. And we had family from South America, North America, Europe, Africa, Zimbabwe, South Africa, London, Australia watching. We would never have got all that family into one event in one country at one time. It didn't matter what the time difference was. There was something like 17, 18-hour time differences, but everyone was on. And the live chat that was coming through of people, blessing them, saying, I will, sending them prayers, people commenting, talking to each other. You just felt you were part of this experience that was happening across the world. It was just unbelievable. And the next day there was something like 200 WhatsApp messages of people having videoed themselves toasting to Tennessee and her husband and sending us the video, and then people getting together, taking photographs together. Family members that haven't spoken for 10 years saw each other on Zoom and started texting each other and setting up WhatsApp groups. What came out of it was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And I never would have thought, oh, yes, watching my daughter getting married on Zoom could ever be a positive experience. Did I bawl my eyes out? Yes, I bawled my eyes out when my husband said his speech of I never got to walk my little girl down the aisle, and I said to her husband, please protect my little girl. I bawled my eyes out. Tennessee bawls her eyes out at the front altar. We were all watching her sobbing, nothing we could do. But at the end of it, I had this incredible sense of peace and just the connection and the love that came out of that virtual experience. So again, it could have been a very unhappy story, or it could be an incredibly inspiring, uplifting story. So what story are we telling ourselves? Is it healthy, helpful, and productive? So on that note, we are going to head off to questions, but I'm going to maybe just jazz it up. Either you want to ask a question, or you would like to share a strategy that you have implemented to improve workplace culture that we haven't heard. So either one, it can either be a question that you put into the question box, or it could be a strategy you've implemented to improve workplace culture. And I'm going to hand over to Sam to manage that. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Jacqui, and thank you for sharing that beautiful story.
Thank you.
Thank you, daughter. And, hopefully we'll be able to get to London at some stage in the near future. Look, please start sharing, as Jacqui said, those questions or strategies you've employed. Just a couple of questions here to start with, Jacqui. You've talked a lot about the why for the person. There's a couple of questions that came through earlier in the presentation about how do you change the why for your disengaged staff? If you can't get, you're managing a team and you can't get the disengaged staff, whatever you do, you can't seem to see them connect with the why of the organisation. What would you suggest?
I think there's two things. So I often talk about that performance is both. So if I say the vision is where we're heading, so where this is my North Star, this is where we're heading. The way we're going to get there is we're going to execute on the what. So what we need to do is my right hand, and the how is how we're going to do it is my left hand. And I often talk about that underperformance is not just about delivering on the what, the KPIs, but it's also how we engage with one another, how we interact with one another, how we interact with our customers. So giving you a choice to step up and actually be engaged and be part of this journey and really contribute to the culture. Should you choose not to engage, it actually is going to become a performance conversation. So I'm actually going to be talking about behaviours as not acceptable, and you have the choice to change the behavior and step up, or you can choose to remain disengaged, but it's not going to be acceptable anymore. The second thing is I try and tap into the individual motivators. So going back to, is it structure that they're looking for? Is it they're wanting more autonomy that they're needing? Is there an opportunity to get them to be, run mini projects, or do they need more specific frameworks and structure, or do they need a bit more visibility, or do they need a bit more connection with the team? So tapping into individual connectors rather than team company connectors.
Thanks, Jacqui, and obviously having some tough conversations as well along the way.
Yes.
We've got a couple of comments here that people have done that you asked.
Nice.
So Janice here said they've developed a mentorship program for their students with the industry to help them succeed in their careers.
Love it.
Encouraging team members to give others the benefit of the doubt has resulted in some examples of where the why has been questioned, resulting in a better understanding for the individual and the team motivators.
Nice.
Now, just another question here. So there's some great examples of what people are doing. Just another question here around what's the best way to communicate and connect that why to your team? Is there any tips around your communication style to do that? Is it the storytelling side of things to build that why, or are there other tips around just communicating that message?
I think I'd start broad. So I would actually get them to come to you with either having looked at the internet or Google or whatever information is around the organization, and come to you and say, from what I've researched, this is understanding of our organization's vision, where we're heading. This is my understanding of the organization's purpose, why. And then I would start flicking back questions. Well, what does that mean to you? So, when you look at the nature of our business, and I'd be asking questions like, who are your internal customers? What do your internal customers need and expect from you? And those are all the different teams and departments. Who are your external customers? How well do you know them? What do they need and expect from you? What is our value proposition? What makes us stand apart from other organizations? And then let's link it back to the purpose. What does that actually mean to you? And when you look at your job, what can you be doing individually to connect to it? Your team, what can your team be doing to connect to it? So actually, rather than tell and prescribe, actually ask what their understanding is, and then ask them how they believe they can contribute to it. And if there's a misalignment, then you can tell. But first, try and get them to be a little bit more creative around, well, what could they be doing to contribute to it more meaningfully? I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Jacqui. A really great one here that we hear a lot of at the Institute from clients and also people coming in for our leadership programs is from Andrew. And this is essentially based on my experience with a number of organisations. The biggest problem was created where the leadership wanted to move at a pace of change that was faster than the staff could process. So is there benefit in slowing down and engaging in more conversations with the staff as a manager that allowed the change to move forward more consistently yet slower?
So I think that's absolutely great insight. I use these two words, commitment or compliance. So if we just go into a healthy lead and we've got to hit this deadline, this is when it needs to be done, we potentially get compliance where people will fly below the radar. They won't do enough to get caught out or lose their job or have a performance conversation, but their heart and soul are not in it. Or we can have commitment. And to get commitment means it's going to take a little bit longer. And I think what jumps into my mind immediately is Tuckman's team formation model of forming, storming, norming, performing. So if we're trying to manage a culture change or any type of change, you're basically forming again. So it's going all the way back to the beginning. Who are the different personalities within our team? What are the different roles? What are we trying to achieve? What is the common vision? What is the common purpose? What is your understanding of it? And then we move into storming. Now, storming, we're going to start challenging each other and challenging each other's roles and challenging others' ideology. And some people will move quicker out of that storming into the norming, but other people will take a bit longer. But we have to take the whole team on the journey, because if we've still got some sitting and storming, we can't get the whole team to norm. So it's about going, here, some people are still sitting here and storming and having that tough conversation. Why potentially are you still sitting and storming? Have we not addressed it? Have we not given you an opportunity to contribute? Do you feel that you haven't been given ample time to engage? Or actually, do we need to have a tough conversation and go, you know, you're just deliberately digging your heels in for your own personal agenda, and that, you know, we have to, is this a genuine intention to try to understand, or are you just trying to make things difficult for your own, for whatever's going on in your personal life? This is an opportunity to kick back and having some of those tough conversations. But yeah, just I agree with you absolutely. Slowing it down, you know, lose the battle, win the war is what sort of jumps into my mind.
Thank you, Jacqui. That was excellent. Looking at it from another perspective, from Sarah, what do you advise for people who aren't currently in a formal leadership position in the organisation? How do I start change in my team? We need a cultural shift, but I feel very small and underwhelmed in what I do in my role.
Yeah, so I think we've got to go back to that word influence. Is that even if I have the official title, I still don't feel I can get things. If we look at leadership, leadership is getting results out of other people. So that for me is what leadership is trying to get results out of other people. If I have a title, maybe I can coerce people to deliver results, because if they don't, I'm going to now have performance improvement plans and maybe give them formal consequences. But at the end of the day, I'm still just going to have people in compliance. I'm still not going to have people with commitment. So at the end of the day, I don't think it makes much difference whether we have official title of leadership or not. I think it all comes down to the ability and the skill to influence. Have I tapped into their understanding of the why? Have I tapped into the understanding of what we're trying to do as a business? Have I really tried to get the kind of conversations? I often use this word with them, what's in it for me? That people don't do something unless they see the relevance to them, they see the benefit to them. So when I'm having this conversation with you, don't do it for me, because then you're going to say, oh, you're not my boss, you can't tell me what to do. No, don't do it for me. I don't even do it for the organization. Do it for you, because what do you stand to gain when you make it better for the customer experience? What do you stand to gain when you make it better for your team members to have a better experience? What do you stand to learn? How much more rewarding is this for you? So always tap it back into the wisdom for them, not, oh, I have to listen to you, but do this for you. What do you stand to gain from this?
Jacqui, on that note, thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation. The passion, the energy. I mean, I'm sitting right here, and you know, it's phenomenal. And thank you so much for delivering such a wonderful presentation. The feedback here from all of our audience today virtually. I know we've you know, pretty much maxed out the GoToWebinar platform with the audience today. Thank you so much. Some fantastic insights. Now, all of Jacqui's material, the recording of today's presentation, the resources that Jacqui talked about will be emailed to all of you this afternoon. So you'll have that on hand. Now, look, if you any more inquiries about the Institute in terms of, you know, Jacqui Perkins and what we do, from certainly our virtual workshop scenario, because a lot of this content is delivered through our virtual workshops, please get in touch with IML, and we're happy to talk to you about what we can do, as well as, you know, Jacqui facilitates all of our leadership programs right across the board, both face-to-face here in Brisbane and also virtually around Australia and New Zealand. But Jacqui, you can see the feedback coming through. Thank you so much. An amazing presentation. We look forward to Kerry-Ann Cassidy in half an hour's time. Kerry-Ann is presenting on Catch People Doing the Right Thing.
Yep.
And
I just want to add in there, thank you so much, Sam, for brilliant code facilitation. He was quietly telling me which screen to click on and what I should or shouldn't be doing, and for encapsulating it all and giving me such a good synopsis of all the information that's coming through. So thank you very, very much, Sam. And you had to have my huge loud voice in his ear here. So thank you so much. And for the wonderful contribution, your engagement, your energy, your commitment. I'm looking at these comments. They're absolutely beautiful. Mwah. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Sam to please copy them so I can read them quietly and calmly with a glass of wine. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Jacqui. I'm just happy being your assistant today. So I'm happy to ride on your coattails. But look, thank you once again. We look forward to Kerry-Ann in 30 minutes. Catch People Doing the Right Thing, and we'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.